أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ومن آياته أنك ترى الأرض خاشعة فإذا أنزلنا عليها الماء فإذا أنزلنا عليها الماء اهتزت وربت. إن الذي أحياها لمحيي الموتى إنه على كل شيء قدير. إن الذين يلحدون في آياتنا لا يخفون علينا أفمن يلقى في النار خير أم من يأتي آمنا يوم القيامة اعملوا ما شئتم إنه بما تعملون بصير. إن الذين كفروا بالذكر لما جاءهم وإنه لكتاب عزيز لا يأتيه الباطل من بين يديه ولا من خلفه تنزيل من حكيم حميد. ما يقال لك إلا ما قد قيل للرسل من قبلك إن ربك لذو مغفرة وذو عقاب أليم. ولو جعلناه قرآنا أعجميا لقالوا لولا فصلت آياته أعجمي وعربي قل هو للذين آمنوا هدى وشفاء والذين لا يؤمنون في آذانهم وقر وهو عليهم عمى أولئك ينادون من مكان بعيد. ولقد آتينا موسى الكتاب فاختلف فيه ولولا كلمة سبقت من ربك لقضي بينهم وإنهم لفي شك منه مريب. من عمل صالحا فلنفسه ومن أساء فعليها وما ربك بظلام للعبيد. صدق الله العظيم.
الحمد لله الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل إن كنتم تحبون الله فاتبعوني يحببكم الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم من يطع الرسول فقد أطاع الله سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Every moment has been given two bowls from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have two separate things in which we can fill. One is the heart and the other is the mind. Now the first bowl, which is the heart, its task is to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Its task is to generally love. The second bowl is of the mind, and its task is to obtain knowledge, and specifically to obtain knowledge about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is very important for every moment to fill both of these bowls. In fact, the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the nature of loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leads one to bid'ah if you only love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the nature of obtaining knowledge and only knowledge leads one to arrogance or takabbur. So, for example, in terms of bid'ah, there are many people who go to graves and they kiss and prostrate to them. These are all bid'ah, and one who obtains knowledge and has only knowledge forgets about actually doing muhabbah, actually loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and loving the people around them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as such, they fall into arrogance. We need to love and we need to obtain knowledge under the context of Sharia, under the rulings of Sharia. We have to fill up both of these bowls so that we do not fall astray. Bid'ah itself is defined as any addition to the religion that is not found in Quran, Sunnah, or consensual reasoning, and one actually deems it as rewarding if one does that act. And if a person does not do that act, that person is then sinful. And therefore, just like that, if one determines something as either right, wrong, or rewarding or sinful, then that person has added something to the religion and therefore has added a bid'ah to the religion. So we need to be very careful as to what we do with bid'ah. So these two bowls have to work in balance with each other. You cannot obtain knowledge and not have any muhabbah, not have any love, not have any ishq. You cannot have so much ishq and then fall into not obtaining any knowledge. So both of these bowls need to be filled. An example amongst history is the Bani Israel, the Jews, had knowledge, but they had no muhabbah. They did not love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They did not love the prophets. Since the Jews had this knowledge and did not love, they were very arrogant. Until this day, a big characteristic of them is that they are very arrogant. In the Quran, it is stated, سَأَصْرِفُ عَنْ آيَاتِيَ الَّذِينَ يَتَكَبَّرُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ. Surah Al-A'raf. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has stated, I will turn away from my signs those who act unjustly with arrogance in the land. So any type of arrogance, for the most part, is unjust. So what was the result of what they did? They had become enemies of the prophets. They went against prophets, and in fact, ended up killing the prophets. So all the prophets that were killed were actually killed by the Bani Israel, were killed by Jews. The Jews considered themselves as God's children, and they considered themselves as people who cannot be in hellfire. They had so much takabbur inside of them, so much arrogance inside of them, that they did not think that they would leave hellfire for they would not stay in hellfire for more than 40 days. In the Quran, it states that we will be in the hellfire for just a few days. So the Jews in that time especially had a lot of knowledge. They knew so much. In fact, they would tell, during Rasulullah's time, they would tell the Sahaba to go ask about Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. They did not know about Yusuf alayhi salam, but the Jews at that time did. So in order for Rasulullah to be faltered, to be seen as less so of a prophet, they would tell him these things that only a messenger, only someone who is getting revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is getting understanding from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would know. So this is the acts of the Jews. The Jews would change the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the texts of the Quran, of the books, and the meanings of those words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. The Jews couldn't even digest that Rasulullah was born from Banu Ismail rather than Banu Ishaq. Banu Israel were from Banu Ishaq, and over 70,000, approximately 70,000 prophets were born from Hazrat Ishaq alayhi salam's lineage. And so the Jews decided to reject and disrespect the teachings of Rasulullah. Even they knew that Rasulullah was the right prophet, was the prophet, and it was written in their texts, and the elders knew especially. But because of their takabbur, because of their arrogance, they rejected and disrespected Rasulullah, and they did that for many ages before. They were killing prophets. So how difficult it is to reject and disrespect. Another example are the Christians who had love, especially the Catholics. They had love, but they had no knowledge. They had a lot of ishq, and so because of this, they fell into bid'at, and in fact, they fell into shirk in itself. Bid'at is a gateway towards shirk, because eventually people associate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they make regular people into gods. So the Christians, they made Hazrat Isa alayhi salam into their Lord, into their God, into the Son of God. But many people, they consider Hazrat Ali as also a form of God. So these are some examples that we need to be understanding of and protect ourselves from. The Christians at that time, they would leave their wives and children and they would go into a cave and they would worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They would live like monks. In the Quran it states, وَرَهْبَانِيَّةً ابْتَدَعُوهَا مَا كَتَبْنَاهَا عَلَيْهِمْ. Surah Hadid. As for, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has stated, as for monasticism, which means living like monks or like nuns, living lives that are celibate, for example. As for monasticism, they made it up. We never ordained it for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that this is something that they just came up on their own. Monasteries were created. These temples and churches were created in which nuns would live, in which these monks would live. And they would live lives that are not ordinary and not according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted, as evidenced from the Quran. So the Christians went so far ahead into bid'ah that they actually made Hazrat Isa Islam God or the Son of God, and they have the Holy Trinity, in which they have created associations with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all from such shirk and protect us all from bid'ah. And then we look into our Muslim Ummah. In the Muslim Ummah, Rasulullah said that there will be 73 factions that will be created. The Jews would have 72. So there are two main ones amongst the Muslims that we can consider as factions. One is generally considered as Ghair Muqalladeen or Salafis, or whoever is not following and just makes up their own fiqh, for example. So they state that all you have to do is that you have to read the book, such as you read Bukhari Sharif, for example, and then you can just follow, right? One cannot just read a book. For example, if someone were to read a book of surgery or read a book on any sort of mechanical thing, they cannot do it without guidance. Even if nowadays people have video recordings of how to do things, so one still needs guidance. One still needs a university, a classroom setting, some form of someone else teaching you exactly how to do it, especially if it's something that is practical, like living your life as a Muslim. So these are things that we need to understand, and we need guidance. We cannot just live our lives alone and just follow whatever we think is right, because we will fall into following our own nafs. The other faction, the other sect, is the ones who are bid'ah, who are fallen into bid'ah. Now in Pakistan, at least in the subcontinent area, we call these people Barelvi. So people who are fallen into bid'ah, if they have created partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have actually left the fold of Islam, and we need to be very much protected, and we need to continuously look at our own intention as to what we are believing. We cannot, why are we doing something? We need to be very cognizant of that. An example for a person who, so Shaykh Zulfiqar Ahmad Damat Barakatuh, he narrates a personal story of his in which he was in New York at the time. He was at a program, and he, in the crowd, there was a non-Muslim who wanted to accept Islam. So that person, he had the intention to revert, and he asked the Shaykh for him to recite the words so that he can accept Islam. After he accepted Islam, the Shaykh said that now you need a Muslim name. So then the person said, oh, I don't really know. So then he asked, do you have a son? And then the Shaykh said, yes, I do have a son. He said, what is his name? He said, his name is Habibullah. It means the friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, yeah, I want to be called that. So then the Shaykh named him as such. So he left the masjid, but before he had left, Hazrat had said that you go and you can go right now, but continuously come back to me so that you can learn about Islam and you can understand Islam and have that guidance. So the next day, the person did not show up. And so then the next day, after that, the person had showed up with the Bukhari Sharif in his armpit. So then Hazrat Dawud Barakatuh, he saw this and he said, and he went and he called him over and asked him, what are you doing with this kitab, with this book? And then he said, oh, someone on my way out had given me this book, and he said that I don't need to go up to anybody and ask him anything. I can just use this book. And all the answers are in there, and whatever you want to ask, you can just go into this book and you'll get the interpretation and understanding of it, and then you're good to go. So this Bukhari Sharif was given to a person who had accepted Islam just the previous day, and then right away, that person is given the book that is taught at the last level, at the last year of Alim course. You need to build up to that level. Now, not just in terms of understanding and knowledge, but also you need to build that level up to that level in terms of your own habits and your behavior and your own taqwa inside of you. You cannot just be given a book at that level and expect that everything is, that you will be able to fully understand it according to how the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. So that is what happened, and we need to be very careful, especially with these type of people. Now, when it comes to bid'ah, an example is that there was that we need to, first of all, we need to do our deeds according to the intention that we please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we have that intention, we will have to figure out what is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How are we supposed to do things? What is supposed to be our niyyah, our intention, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is most pleased. Otherwise, we will stray from the straight path and we will enter into the will of shaitan. And we need to be very careful. An example of a bid'ah that can be started is there was a Buddhist temple and they were doing their prayers one day, but was disturbed by sounds and movements of a cat. The monks in the temple were disturbed by this cat, so they tied the cat up. When they tied the cat up, then the cat stopped making their noises. So this cat was tied up to a tree by the order of the chief monk, right? So this cat disturbed the monks every day. So then they would tie this cat up before starting their prayers, before starting their rituals. So many years have passed, and the chief monk, along with many of the older monks, also had passed. Time went on, and then they continued to tie the cat in the morning before starting their rituals, before starting their prayers. One day, after so many years, after so much time had passed, that cat had died. So then the monks were very confused as to what to do. The older monks who originally tied up the cat, had already passed away. And so these monks were very confused as to what to do because they did not know the intention that they had. So they had their own intention, and they concluded that they couldn't start their rituals and their prayers until they tied a cat to a tree. So they made the cat tying part of their rituals, part of their religion. And the monks gathered and decided that the best thing to do is to find another cat and then tie the cat before starting their rituals. And so this tradition was added to their religion, right? As Muslims, we do not do our prayers and actions based on habit. We started off as habit, but it is incumbent on us. It is something that we need to do to find out why we need to develop ourselves spiritually so that we have the feelings and the jalliyat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we do it to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to have taqwa, to purify ourselves, and to find closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to do so, we need to understand what our Lord wants. We cannot just follow habits. It is true that if you do not know, you should follow the people who do know, people who you do trust, the ulama, the mashayikh. You do follow what they do so that eventually you can be amongst them, right? Not everybody can understand everything, so that is okay. But we need to strive to continuously understand and learn so that we do not fall into bid'ah. We do not fall into just making our own understandings, our own interpretations when we think that that is right, but in reality that is completely incorrect. So we need to be very careful. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us on the straight path. Ameen. So through these examples, we understand that the Muslim Ummah, that in our Muslim Ummah, we have people who follow the Sharia, right? And then we have people who follow their own temptations and their own nafs. This is a very dangerous path. The great Imams of fiqh, especially the four great Imams, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, rahimahullah alayhim ajma'in, they understood the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were developed both in knowledge and in spiritual levels. And so if we follow them, and they made their rulings, their fiqh rulings, according to the Quran and Sunnah, and according to how the Sahaba Karam lived their lives. They did not just do it based on their own nafs. That's another thing. Even though that these people were very high in terms of their knowledge and spirituality, they still were under the Quran and Sunnah. And so our responsibility is just to follow them at this point. But despite all of this understanding, or despite these things that we have, many people would still say, what is the big deal? I'm doing my actions for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am not hurting anyone. My feelings for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in my heart. It's not necessary for me to go outside and do it in front of people, to do my prayers in the masjid, for me to act and show off. So they use these type of things to give themselves an excuse. But this is not the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. So we need to follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, and we have to understand and have knowledge of the things, of all the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do. So now we ask, now that we understand these two factions, what are the people who are on the straight path? So the straight path is the middle path. It's the people who have balance. It is the people who are who have ishq, who have love, who are following tasawwuf with of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then there are people who, and then those same people also have knowledge. And the ulama of Deoband, they gathered and they had the height of both, especially at the time when they started. For example, like Hazrat Ali, Ashraf Ali Thani rahmatullah, was a great scholar, but he was also very great as a Sufi. So these people are the people who are on the Sirat al-Mustaqim, who are on the straight path. And if we follow their ways, that is our responsibility, to follow them. Then inshallah, we will also remain on the straight path. And in addition to that, if we connect ourselves with people who are on the straight path, then inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put us in the same gathering as them, amongst the same community and people on the Day of Judgment and in Jannah, inshallah. What is the importance of following the Sunnah in the Naqshbandi Silsila? That is a question for people to understand, because we are all people of Tasawwuf. So the eldest in our Silsila is Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, right? And he had the height of following the Sunnah of Rasulullah. He had developed a great status because of following the Sunnah of Rasulullah. And in fact, following the Sunnah is the biggest mujahidah. It is the biggest struggle of them all. Hazrat Bayezid Bustami rahimahullah, he said that he had spent 20 years doing mujahidah, doing struggle, but making every action according to the Sunnah is the biggest struggle, is the most difficult thing to do. Someone came up to Hazrat Junaid Baghdadi rahimahullah, and he was a salik, and he came up to him and said and asked and requested him that please give me ijazah, please give me the permission to leave. And then Hazrat Junaid Baghdadi rahimahullah, he asked why are you asking me to leave? And he said that during this entire period, he had spent 9 years with him. During this entire 9-year period, I have not seen a single karamat. And then Hazrat Junaid Baghdadi rahimahullah, he replied, in these 9 years, have you seen me do any action against the Sunnah? Is there a bigger karamat than this? Meaning it is very difficult to follow the Sunnah. And in fact, it is a karamat to follow the Sunnah in its entirety. That's how high of a thing it is. So may Allah give us the ability to do so and follow the Sunnah according to how Rasulullah did. So to follow the Sunnah, one needs to actually work very hard. There's an Arabic proverb that one who rides this wave will be successful, right? So if we follow the Sunnah, if we follow the ways of Rasulullah, then inshallah we will be successful in the hereafter. What is Sunnat and Bid'ah according to Imam Rabbani, Hazrat Mujahid Sani rahmatullah alayhi, meaning what did he write in his maktubat? So he said that it's a beautiful thing to revive the Sunnah, to follow the Sunnah, right? And reviving the Sunnah is actually very important, but rejecting Bid'ah is as well. So reviving the Sunnah is actually a means to the end of Bid'ah. So if a person starts a Sunnah, starts doing a Sunnah, that is reviving when a person starts reviving one in themselves, but also amongst the public. So there's 2 different levels of reviving. But if a person adds a bid'ah in their life or in the community, then you're causing a sunnah to die. So Hazrat Mujahid Sani, he stated so clearly that sunnah is from the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and bid'ah is from the will of shaitan. The reality of bid'ah does not contain any nur, any light for a moment, and also doesn't contain any cure for any disease, either spiritual or natural. So we should not expect the bid'ah is going to provide us with anything. We won't feel any nur, any light, any happiness, any joy in our life by following bid'ah. It's just something that shaitan is causing us to do, and it's and giving us ideas and misinterpreting. And for that, we are actually causing harm, which is we are removing sunnah from the community or from our own lives. Just for terminology's sake, there are 2 types of bid'ah. One is bid'ah hasana and one is bid'ah sayyi'ah. So bid'ah hasana is that which doesn't stray from the sunnah. So it's just like a minor bid'ah. And then bid'ah sayyi'ah is one that does stray one from the sunnah. But as people of the tasawwuf and as people who need to follow the sunnah and for practically need to understand that this is only for terminology's sake and for categorization's sake. We need, as mu'min and salik, we need to remove all bid'ah from our lives. We should not follow any sort of bid'ah because all bid'ah is from shaitan and is a gateway towards shaitan. And it's a gateway away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to protect ourselves. Imam Rabbani, Hazrat Mujahid Sani states in his maktubat that if one is given all the spiritual feelings in this world, but is taken away from the sunnah, then we would consider them as having bad luck, meaning the person who was given all their kafiyat, their spiritual feelings, but they're not following the sunnah, then that person has bad luck, and that person is on the wrong path. But if vice versa, then that person has great luck, and that person is truly blessed. If a person has no feelings at all, no kafiyat, but they're following the sunnah entirely, that person is truly blessed, and that person is going to be successful in the hereafter, inshallah. Allahu Akbar kabira. Hazrat Mujahid Sani Rahmatullah has described 7 levels of following the Sunnah. First level is the level that most people would have, the general public would have. In our daily habits, the way we speak, the way we talk, the way we interact with people, all of this is the first level of following the Sunnah. So in terms of our appearance, we look like we are following the Sunnah. And that is the first level, and that is the first step. If that is not something you're doing, that is something you have to focus on. And you cannot achieve other levels without having this first level. So your appearance first matters. People who say that I have this in my heart, that's not possible. You cannot have something in your heart if you don't have it outwardly, because that is the progression of it, of your development in religion and in the Sunnah. The second level is that you are not just following the Sunnah in terms of the appearance, but in addition to that, you have an inside understanding within your heart that you are like Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and you have taqwa that follows that you are following that Sunnah. The third level includes the previous levels, but that person has similar kafiyat or feelings when following the Sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And this is the third level, and one cannot achieve this status until they have walaya, meaning friendship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that status, that level, is very defined in the lessons in the asbaq of the Naqshbandi Silsila. So in order to achieve this, one needs to achieve walaya or friendship. But in addition to that, to achieve walaya and to achieve this third level, one needs to achieve nafs mutma'inna, which means that they need to relieve themselves from the ideas of shaitan, and their nafs is telling them what is of the sharia, what is according to the sharia. The fourth level is an even higher level, and that level requires one to reach a level of kamalat and nabuwa, and that then one can follow the fourth level of the sunnah. Thereafter, the fifth, sixth, and seventh levels, these are levels that are achieved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. He will guide you. He will take you there himself. He will open the doors, remove the barriers for you to achieve these levels. It has nothing to do with your knowledge or has nothing to do with your actions as well. These are just blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provide us with the ability to achieve these levels. So to divide it in terms of the lessons in the Naqshbandi Silsila, and its relation to the nur that one can get from the Sunnah, the light from the Sunnah. In the first 15 lessons, one maintains the first level of Sunnah. One actually develops themselves to have the appearance of the Sunnah as much as possible. So this is what happens in the first 15 lessons. After the 15th lesson, you have achieved walayat al-sughra. Between walayat al-sughra and walayat al-kubra, one maintains the second level of sunnah, in which they have the taqwa of the sunnah. After walayat al-kubra, once someone achieves walayat al-kubra, now they have reached the level of the third level of sunnah. They maintain the third level of sunnah from there. In order to achieve the fourth level of sunnah, one needs to reach the level of walayat al-anbiya. And then thereafter, the lessons for Kamalat Muhammadi and Kamalat Ahmadi, these are just higher levels. And like I said, the fifth, sixth, and seventh levels are opened by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the seventh level of following the Sunnah, one cannot differentiate between what is the copy and what is the real. Meaning, for example, if a person has reached the level of the seventh level, then that person and Rasulullah, there will be, one cannot differentiate between the two. An example is when Rasulullah and Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when they entered Madinatul Munawwara during the Hijrah, our Prophet was very tired and very exhausted from the trip from the Hijrah, as one can imagine. So Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he took a step forward and he went up to the locals and started greeting them. The locals had never seen Rasulullah, and they could not differentiate based on just looking at them as who is the real and who is the copy. And so Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq took that to his advantage to protect Rasulullah from this tiring act. And then he went ahead and started meeting everybody so that Rasulullah can be relieved from this task. So the people could not differentiate between Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq and the Imam al-Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam, subhanAllah. One thing to understand is that the company you keep around you matters a lot. Now in our silsila, having our peer bhai and having our tasawwuf brothers, and then amongst the sisters, having good company around you matters a lot. And this good company can exploit your good characteristics, or if you have bad company, it can exploit bad characteristics of you. In fact, it'll even exploit things that you don't even want to do, but you end up doing it because of group mentality, group think. You end up going in that direction. So we need to protect ourselves from bad company. There are three things that actually push you towards bad deeds. One is shaitan, who gives you ideas. And the second is nafs, which gives you temptations. And then the third, which is the most strongest of them all, is bad company, is other humans as well. Your friends, your family, people who are giving you bad thoughts. And these people actually grab you by the hand and pull you to the wrong places, to the wrong things. And so we need to be very careful of these of our company, so that we do not succumb to doing bad deeds and doing the wrong things. When it comes to bid'ah, Hazrat Mujahid Sani rahmatullah had stated in the Maktubat that your company is very important, right? As I mentioned earlier. But in terms of bid'ah, it is extremely troublesome. You should not be around a person who is doing bid'ah, who promotes bid'ah, who does things related to bid'ah. And in fact, Hazrat Mujaddid Sani said in his Maktubat that the company of a bid'ati is worse than the company of a kafir. So many of us have gone to school, or at least one can imagine, have gone to school in the United States or in a Western country, and you have experienced, or even like I would say even in Eastern countries, if a person wants to be more religious, many people in the schools would say very negative things. But the most negative and the most pinpoint and the most hurtful things are said by other Muslims themselves. That is my personal experience, at least. And I've also heard that other people have this experience as well. And so the Muslims actually hurt you more and actually move you away from Islam more so than the non-Muslims. For whatever reason they have, either they feel like you are showing yourself as more religious as them, other people taunt them for that reason, or they just simply see you as a radical extremist or something like that. So one should just avoid this company. This is negative thoughts and negative peer pressure that we should not have in our lives. So in the context of bid'ah, we should also remove ourselves from people who are doing bid'ah, because they consider what they're doing as religious and rewarding. And they think that since we are not doing that bid'ah, we are sinful. And so they can through negative peer pressure, or through just making us feel bad, can put us into a dangerous position in which we end up doing bid'ah. So such companies and acts are very dangerous, and we need to protect ourselves. So we need to understand this entire topic was talking about following the Sunnah of Rasulullah, and especially for a Salik in the Naqshbandi Silsila, it is very important for us to follow the Sunnah, because we come from the Silsila of Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq Radhiyallahu anhu, and his greatness came from following the Sunnah. And we know that following the Sunnah will lead us to success. And so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to follow the Sunnah of Rasulullah, protect us and allow us to avoid bid'ah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give our mashayikh a high reward in which whom have allowed us to follow and learn from them, which is a great blessing for us that we have people around us. We have our Shaykh who is giving us proper guidance, who is putting us on the straight path, because many mashayikh are not really following the Sunnah. They're not following Islam in itself, and in fact, they're making them follow their salikin follow them, and that is very dangerous. And alhamdulillah, our Shaykh does not do that. And our the silsila, the shajara of Naqshbandi silsila, alhamdulillah, is very protected in that manner. To give them a high reward for having us stay away from bid'ah and allow us to follow the sunnah, and then have us enlighten our lives. Ameen, thumma ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Let us make dua. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. Ya Allah, forgive all our sins. Ya Allah, forgive all our sins. Ya Allah, forgive all our sins. Ya Allah, have mercy on us. Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we have done so much wrong in our lives. Ya Allah, we have done so many things that were wrong in our lives. We have done them in public, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we have done them in private, Ya Allah. And Ya Allah, we are just we are on the wrong path, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, put us on the straight path. Ya Allah, ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Ya Allah, please put us on the straight path. Give us hidayah, Ya Allah. And Ya Allah, people who are around us who are off the right path, Ya Allah, put them on the right path. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. Ya Allah, allow us to have good company around us, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, there are so many bad people around us, Ya Allah, and we have accepted them to be part of our lives, Ya Allah, in our day-to-day lives. Or they are part of our lives and we cannot remove them because they are either family, Ya Allah, or we just simply cannot be far away from them. But Ya Allah, give us the ability to be on the right path, to follow the sunnah, to stay away from bid'ah, to be close to you, Ya Allah. We have all these problems, Ya Allah. We have all these excuses, Ya Allah. But Ya Allah, we do not have a long term, we don't have a long time in this life, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we live here like travelers, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, Hazrat Isa Islam, Ya Allah, a woman came up to him and told him about their children. But Ya Allah, she said, oh, are the people of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's ummah going to even make houses, Ya Allah? But Ya Allah, we are making skyscrapers, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we are living here like we are going to live here forever, Ya Allah. But Ya Allah, we are just travelers. We are just here for a short period of time, Ya Allah. But Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Allah, have mercy on us, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, allow us to follow the deen in its complete form, Ya Allah. And Ya Allah, allow us to respect our mashayikh as they have been teaching us so many great things, Ya Allah, are putting us on the right path, Ya Allah, are teaching us beautiful things, Ya Allah. It is our weakness that we are not following fully, Ya Allah. And Ya Allah, we do not listen to our Shaykh fully, Ya Allah. And Ya Allah, we have to be better, Ya Allah. And Ya Allah, we need your help, Ya Allah. We need your protection, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, protect us from all sins. Protect us from bid'ah. Ya Allah, protect us from shirk. Ya Allah, protect us from bad company. Ya Allah, protect us from shaitan. Ya Allah, protect us from our nafs. Ya Allah, protect us from Jahannam. And Ya Allah, protect us from disrespecting our elders, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, protect us from disrespecting our Shaykh, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, protect us from disrespecting our Nabi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Ya Allah. Disrespecting the Sahaba, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we need to do better in our respect, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, allow us a space in Jannah. Allow us a space in Jannatul Firdaus. Ya Allah, allow us a space at the feet of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Allah, we are so weak, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, give us high status without doing so much effort, Ya Allah. We are so weak, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, give us the ability to be closer to you, to do more worship to you, to have better feelings and kafiyat for you, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we want our niyyah Our intention is to get closer to you, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, help us, Ya Allah. Help us and allow us to do so, Ya Allah. Sallallahu ta'ala ala khari khalqihi Muhammadin wa ala alihi ashabi ajma'in. برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Inshallah, we're going to do another program, inshallah, next week. And everyone is requested to continuously come. We are also putting the recordings on YouTube itself. So everyone who can subscribe, that would be great. And inshallah, share it with others. Share this link with others so people can listen to it live as well. And inshallah, next week we'll talk about our company with our Shaykh, inshallah. So please everyone join and share it with others.